Start with contracting sprites. Chapter 141, Waterfall Training Area. On the third floor of the Sprite library. The training books on the bookshelves here were clearly much sparser. There were no longer so many versions designed for different sprites, and improved unique skills were similarly rare. Most of them were the insights and training experience of other sprite trainers regarding each unique skill. Suhao didn't stroll around. He walked straight to the area of the water element unique skill, and then came in front of an unyielding sprite that was giving directions. He asked for the location of the water path. The unyielding sprite leaped a few steps forward, then tilted its body. Its eyes and fingers pointed in a certain direction at the same time. Introduction to the unique skill of water path. Suhao put down the booklet in his hand. The introduction of unique skills on it was much more detailed than on the internet. There were also brief training points. Unfortunately, I didn't trigger the unique skill to unlock it. Of course, even if it was triggered, in order to save intelligence points, he would have wanted to buy detailed and authentic training books. He controlled the screen beside him. Unique skill water path training method. Purchase requires 3 credits / 100,000 Dragon Nation dollars, confirm purchase. Please select payment method, 1. Student card, credits, 2. Dragon Nation bank card, 3. WeChat scan payment, 4. Penguin scan payment. Of course, Suhao was going to choose ordinary currency payment. He couldn't afford to lose credits. Then, he went to the Universal Unique Skill area and spent 60,000 yuan to buy cloud steps. Suhao didn't check the 2 sets of unique skills he bought right away. Instead, he sent them back to the villa's computer. It wasn't his own notebook, but a desktop system that every dormitory had. It could connect to the school's intranet. In fact, if he stayed in the dormitory, he could directly use the computer to buy unique skills. It was just that, since they were already at university, if they didn't take a look at the library, they would feel that it was a little less ceremonial. The next day, Suhao had already unlocked 2 unique skills. Cloud Step, unlock with 7 intelligence points. Water Path, unlock with 9 intelligence points. The discount was very high. Firstly, his knowledge reserves had increased again compared to the past. He was even more of a genius now. Secondly, the training method purchased by the library was very detailed. The video alone was as long as 2 hours. He even finished watching it at 1.5 times the speed. It was only at 1 AM when he finished reading all the training methods for the 2 unique skills. So Suhao slept till 9 the next day. After having a free and delicious breakfast in the student canteen, Suhao went straight to the training field he chose yesterday. Skyfall. This venue was one of Whale Island University's most popular training venues. It could effectively train a sprite's physique. It was suitable for training the water unicorn beast. While learning unique skills, it became more resistant. That was double the joy. Skyfall was more than 10 kilometers away from the dormitory area. On account of the water unicorn beast having to train later, Suhao didn't ride it. Instead, he rode the driverless school bus here. Beep. Destination, we've arrived at the Skyfall training area. Outside the training area, Suhao saw the huge waterfall pouring down from the tall mountain peak like the Milky Way of the 9 heavens from afar. He couldn't help it. He took out his cell phone and took a photo. After taking a look, he said, "It's too far, we still have to get closer to take photos." He just took a few steps forward. And a few more forward. Then, he was stopped by a sprite. It was a leaf blade warrior. The final evolved form of this sprite had yet to be discovered, so, even though the leaf blade warrior was only a first level evolution, the one in front of him was already at the peak of elite level. They were guarding the door. The leaf blade warrior, who was standing upright, pointed to a signboard beside him. Skyfall training area ticket, 0.3 credits / 1 sprite. Team ticket, 1 credits/5 sprites. Weekly card, 1.5 credits/1 sprite, 7 days. Monthly card, 5 credits/1 sprite, 30 days. Su Hao was puzzled. There was an inexplicable sense of déjà vu. But he knew about the fee for the training area. There was a ticketing booth at the place where he had just walked past. It was just that he was so focused on taking pictures that he didn't notice it. The staff member in the ticketing booth had also fallen asleep. "What time is it? Still sleeping?" Su Hao walked forward and observed for a few seconds. Feeling that it shouldn't be some big boss instructor, he knocked on the glass window outside. Knock, knock, knock. Knock, knock, knock. The staff member jolted and stood up. When he saw that it wasn't someone checking on duty but a student, he heaved a sigh of relief. "Buy tickets? 3 tickets? Ordinary tickets or the weekly card or monthly card?" Su Hao's gaze swept across the 3 sprites. The water unicorn beast needed to undergo training at Skyfall. If it was suitable, he could buy a monthly card. Flaming Cloud Crow could also train here for a few days. Only Reverie Butterfly wasn't very suitable. But it was even more inappropriate to leave the little rascal here. It was only 0.3 credits anyway. Gurgle, gle, gurgle. Reverie Butterfly shook its head madly. It expressed that it didn't need it. After spending credits, how could it not train? It wouldn't fall for it, gurgle. Ugh. Su Hao pondered for 2 seconds. All right. He let it be. Anyway, how could he lose such a big sprite? Even if it ran away and disappeared, he could catch it with a summon. On the whole Whale Island, special venues were arranged like branches on a tree trunk. There was only one path leading to Skyfall. As they approached, the air gradually became humid. The sound of water splashing came from the waterfall. The water unicorn beast let out a cheerful cry. In comparison, the flaming cloud crow was a little dull. "These are things you have to overcome," Su Hao said. Flaming Cloud Crow's current killer move was strong, but its weakness was too obvious. It was severely countered by the water element. In a moist environment, it might even be very difficult to enter the flaming feather form. Just like now. He had to train some resistance for the Flaming Cloud Crow. Stepping on the blue stone-paved road, Su Hao approached step by step. Looking at the waterfall pouring down, he was shocked. The waterfall fell and hit the water surface. Waves of white mist filled the air. On the water, some round platforms could be vaguely seen. It was distributed in both directions. The closer it got to the core of the waterfall, the greater the impact it received. Under the wash of the waterfall containing spiritual force, the effect of physical training was especially good. So when Su Hao arrived, he saw other sprites. A 10,000 vine turtle with vines flew out one by one, like a hanging bridge. The other side clung onto the rock wall behind the waterfall. It was probably polishing the vines. Apart from this, there were also sprites such as the golden armored overlord, the sea-tide frog king, the giant armored crab, and so on. Most of them were sprites training by themselves. There weren't many sprite trainers present. Su Hao saw a familiar face from afar. He must have seen him before during the college entrance examination. He couldn't name him. He gave him a glance and stopped paying attention. But a figure in the waterfall caught his attention. That person was only wearing a pair of boxer shorts, and his rock-like muscles were well defined. He stood on the platform under the waterfall and allowed the violent water to wash over him. He didn't move at all. Behind the muscular man was his sprite, a great titan. It had evolved from the sprite thumb monkey to great strength gorilla, and then evolved into the final form of great titan. It's had some gold hair amidst its black hair. Su Hao felt that its thick arms were wider than his, no, even wider than a whole water unicorn beast. The great titan was doing exercises under the waterfall, displaying its explosive muscles. Su Hao had to swallow his saliva. The senior in Whale Island University is a bit scary. It wasn't the style he wanted. Suhao retreated to the other side, found a place where the water current was splashing on relatively ordinary areas, and patted the water unicorn beast. You should understand after watching for so long. Go up and give it a try. Water unicorn beast. What should I know? I've already released the 2 chapters at the same time today. Please support me tomorrow. Chapter 142, Heavenly King Wu, He Can't Run Anywhere Priority Reservation. The training method Suhao designed for the water unicorn beast was very simple. It was to climb up against the force of the waterfall. In the beginning, it could step on the rock wall first. When it got familiar, it should step on air completely. Falling? That was normal. Every successful person has to first grind their muscles and bones, hurting their body and skin. The water unicorn beast, which had never experienced demonic training, was stunned on the spot. The flaming cloud crow stretched out its wings and patted it, meaning to tell it not to be afraid, and that it would soon be used to it. It had been this way for itself as well. You have to go too. Suhao looked at the flaming cloud crow. The requirements for you aren't that high. Find an area with a weaker impact, then use the flaming feather stance. When you can maintain the flaming feather stance in the waterfall for 5 minutes, you'll be done. Flaming cloud crow, Sigma, A. I can't do it. Yes, like that, a bit towards the left. Suhao was guiding the water unicorn beast step by step, to let it grasp the rhythm of resisting the impact of the waterfall. On the other side, the flaming cloud crow had held back for a long time. Finally, at a dense misty spot, translucent feathers of fire appeared on the black feathers. They arranged themselves and circles of red light spread out. It looked majestic. It made a squawk sound, and with an irreversible aura, it charged towards the skyfall. Boom! The water streams hit the flaming cloud crow, water and fire collided. Under the high temperature, waves of hot mist exploded. It felt like it could steam a sauna. The red glow on the flaming cloud crow flickered in the waterfall, like a light bulb that was about to break. 10 seconds later. Bang! The flaming cloud crow turned into a water-sunken crow. It spread its wings and floated on the water surface as though it was crippled. It floated to the shore with the flow of the water. Squawk! Suhao picked it up and shook it. He wasn't surprised to see that the flaming cloud crow's eyes were still dull and lifeless as if it was spoilt. He took out the 3rd type jade powder set meal that he had prepared long ago. It exuded a fatal attraction. The flaming cloud crow moved over. Suhao slammed the lid shut. Squawk! How cruel! Suhao said to it, as long as you can hold on for 1 minute, you can have as much as you want. Even if you can't take it today, you still have to continue practicing tomorrow, but there won't be any rewards. Think about it, isn't it a loss? Seems like it. If Reverie Butterfly was present at this moment, it would definitely make a disdainful gurgle. But it wasn't. Suhao thought about it. Giving Reverie Butterfly a day off didn't seem too bad either. The lost training will soon be made up with interest inclusive. The flaming cloud crow continued on fighting. The water unicorn beast was also climbing up. After being washed down, it climbed up again. In the repeated cycle of being washed down, it was constantly being trained hard. However, since it was water element and had thick scales, it wasn't too uncomfortable for it to be washed away by the waterfall. It was also one with lots of energy. It even displayed interest after a while. With increasing excitement, it kept calling out "Nay nay." Suhao touched his chin. He seemed to have figured out the trick to stimulate the water unicorn beast's fighting spirit. That's good. Student, your water cloud horse is a 2nd generation sprite, right? It's training cloud steps. Suhao turned around and saw a middle-aged man with thick black hair walking over. The man looked at the waterfall and said seemingly casually, When training cloud steps, you can first let the water cloud horse move along a specific route and plan every foothold. It's easier for sprites to learn unique skills that way. He gave a few pointers regarding the route plans of the water cloud horse. In the end, he said, your sprite cultivation is pretty good. Continue to work hard. Then, he touched his thick hair and walked away. Su Hao was rendered speechless. Based on his analysis, that was likely a school instructor. Like students, he also probably frequented various training venues. However, he should just be a normal instructor. There was a basis behind his conclusion. This instructor had thick black hair and was even combed neatly. He was also dressed very neatly. Which expert would be dressed like this? Real experts wouldn't come to a relatively basic training area like Skyfall either. He immediately forgot about the middle-aged instructor. He continued to supervise, strike through, guide the water unicorn beast and flaming cloud crow in their training. Heavenly King Wu left and walked to a place with no one. A force enveloped his body. In an instant, he disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already high in the sky. He hung there, touched his chin, and let the wind blow his hair, which did not get messy despite so. Behind Heavenly King Wu was a sprite as tall as a human and shaped like a doll. It showed agility behind its pair of eyes. Countless translucent threads shot out from the doll's hand, and the ends of the threads were hidden in the air. The evolved form of marionette, trading puppet. Wood/consciousness, a double-element sprite. The psychic power it sent out held Heavenly King Wu and hid him as he observed the surroundings. Even if someone looked up, they couldn't see Heavenly King Wu's figure. Only the clouds in the blue sky. Little Su, not bad indeed. Heavenly King Wu had actually been observing for a long time. He witnessed Su Hao's hard work, and understood his character. Excellent students yearn to learn from good instructors. But how could heavenly kings like them who worked in universities not want to take in a student they were satisfied with? Who would not want to produce an expert? Heavenly King Wu could already imagine the day when their group of old friends would gather. A heavenly king, I've cultivated another main sprite. Heavenly King Wu, my disciple is already a heavenly king. A heavenly king, I created a new secret manual. Heavenly King Wu, my disciple is already a heavenly king. A heavenly king, I'm in the new world. Heavenly King Wu, my disciple is already a heavenly king. How cool was that? Heavenly King Wu touched his chin. My pointers can make it easier for little Su's sprite to learn cloud steps. With today as the basis, when school officially starts and the coaches are selected, little Su will probably be very surprised to see me in that striking Heavenly King level logo. He felt there was nowhere else this student could run to. Everything is ready, now we just have to wait for school to reopen. Heavenly King Wu did not continue waiting any longer. There were many other things that kept him occupied. Let's go. The Heavenly Kings of Whale Island University all had their own manners in the school to house their sprites. There was even a logistics team taking care of it. Many of them were licensed sprite cultivators. At this moment, at the entrance of Martial Arts Heavenly King's Manor, a muscular boy with bare arms and muscles as hard as rock walked in. A great titan followed behind the muscular boy, maintaining the same waving motion as him. Teacher, I've already comprehended the profound meaning that you spoke of. He was talking about me, not a sprite. As the disciple of martial arts Heavenly King, the worshippers and sprites improved together in their lineage. Even though the manpower was limited. But it was not a reason for them to give up on their own progress. When the bare-chested boy walked in, he saw Heavenly King Buletin, whose body was 2 rounds wider than his, sprawled on the ground. He had one hand behind his back and the thumb of his other hand pressed against the ground. He was doing one-handed thumb push ups. He moved up and down at light speed. After finishing one set, Heavenly King Buletin stood up without looking tired at all. He was also half naked, with very well-developed muscles. His upper body was wide, and his body had an inverted triangle shape. When he stood up, he was half a head taller than the bare-chested boy, and it was as if he had blocked the sunlight from casting a large shadow on him. Extreme impact. It wasn't much worse than the great titan behind the boy. The bare-chested boy chatted with the tutor about his training. He made a few movements. How long did it last? As he spoke, he saw Heavenly King Wu. Old Wu? What's his relationship with that new student? Could he be Old Wu's illegitimate son? Heavenly King Buletin showed an interested look. Chapter 143, Breaking Through to Elite. Please subscribe. A few hours later. So he's not Old Wu's illegitimate son. Heavenly King Wu was very disappointed, but when he turned around, his eyes shone brightly. This little student is very outstanding. Could it be that Old Wu wants to take in a disciple? He found out about Su Hao's experience right away. First in the joint examination. Tianese province's top scholar. Mid-level sprite cultivator. And he came from an ordinary family. In this aspect, he was as surprised as Heavenly King Wu. So Su Hao attracted his attention. What a pity. Su Hao had an ordinary physique. He wasn't strong, but he wasn't weak either. However, in Heavenly King Buletin's eyes, that small body was too weak. It didn't suit his taste. No muscles, arms and legs are too thin. However, even though he was young and weak, he was able to stand up for himself in the face of a terrorist attack. His courage is pretty good. It's not impossible to train and nurture him to have a body of perfect muscles. Heavenly King Buletin thought about it. It was decided. During the opening ceremony, let's go and take a look. Let's express interest that little student named Su Hao. Maybe he can guide him to become a heavenly king, to inherit his legacy. Su Hao didn't know that the person he met that day was a heavenly king. He was still training his sprites according to his own rhythm. He got the water unicorn beast a monthly card for Skyfall. He gave the flaming cloud crow a weekly card. The next day, he let the two sprites train by themselves. He only came over occasionally to supervise. Guide them. Then, he chose a special place for Reverie Butterfly to train. Mirror Forest. Large numbers of crystal pillars as smooth as mirrors formed the Mirror Forest. Mirror Forest was the most suitable place for ghost element sprites to cultivate. However, sprites of other elements whose mental strength met the requirements could also touch the crystal pillars of the Mirror Forest, pour in their own mental strength, and condense their own spiritual bodies inside. The more the spiritual body moved between the crystal pillars, the more condensed it became. The extent was large. The only limitation is that sprites can't cultivate in the Mirror Forest often. But it didn't matter. In his spare time, Su Hao also arranged a full set of training tasks for the little rascal. As the big sister, not to mention anything else, its mission definitely wouldn't be less than the other two sprites. Reverie Butterfly. This isn't what I wanted, gurgle. Days passed. Su Hao lived a very regular university life. Oh, actually, university hadn't started yet. In the blink of an eye, a month passed. The water unicorn beast had learned two advanced unique skills. Under the skyfall, the flaming cloud crow's flaming feather form could last for 5 minutes before it was thrown into the lava hell to cultivate. Both sprites had made significant improvements. As for Reverie Butterfly, in Su Hao's eyes, behind the attributes of Reverie Butterfly, there was already a limit arc. This meant that its various basic qualities had reached the limit that it could accommodate at entry level. It could break through now. It's a little faster than I expected. But breaking through to elite level at entry level is even harder than breaking through to entry level. Many sprites need the opportunity to evolve to their final form before they can break through the bottleneck. It wasn't time for Reverie Butterfly to evolve yet. In fact, it hadn't even satisfied its prerequisite attributes. The evolution conditions of Fairy Butterfly weren't necessarily much easier than those of the pseudo-monarch pathways. I can only rely on the little rascal to complete the breakthrough itself, and also with my help. Su Hao understood. At Whale Island University, there was actually a facility that could help sprites break through. It was called the pressure room. It was integrated with gravity, high-level sprite pressure, and some invisible force that he didn't understand. It pressed onto the sprite. He made use of the pressure to complete the breakthrough in one go. According to the school intranet, the first attempt at the pressure room has the best effect. Even if the breakthrough fails, we have to grasp the feeling of breaking through. Otherwise, it would be a waste. So Su Hao prepared to give Reverie Butterfly a few days off. Gurgle. It's really a holiday. Gurgle. No interest counted. No extra training. Gurgle. Do you still want your holiday or not? Gurgle. Reverie Butterfly nodded suspiciously. It relaxed its body and mind and adjusted its condition to its optimal state. A few days later, Su Hao brought Reverie Butterfly to the pressure room. It was similar to the regular training rooms. The pressure rooms were also a spacious, sealed room. After the sprite entered, the sprite trainer could only stand outside and look inside through the glass window. If he really went in, he would be kneeling right away. Su Hao came to the lobby to complete the procedures. He saw a staff member who looked like a middle-aged woman sitting there playing with her cell phone. Beside her was a moon dancer. Well, extraordinary. Su Hao immediately changed his words. Hello, teacher. I want to open a B-class pressure room. The middle-aged woman looked up, her gaze sweeping across him and Reverie Butterfly. 2 credits. You have to wait a week after failing before you can try again. As she spoke, she took the temporary student card from Su Hao. There was some shock on her face. A new student. She felt that Su Hao's attitude was pretty good and that he had potential. After thinking about it, she said, apart from the sprite itself, the sprite trainer's encouragement is also very important for a sprite's breakthrough. The so-called encouragement actually stems from the support of a sprite trainer's soul power. But at your stage, your soul power isn't strong enough. Apart from relying on a few fixed sprite trainers, you can't actually mobilize it. Encouraging and wholeheartedly supporting is the best motivation for sprites. Don't underestimate this. Research has shown that the more connected a sprite is with a sprite trainer, the easier it is to break through. Su Hao nodded solemnly, indicating that he understood. Sprite trainers and sprites were mutually beneficial relationships where you fed me and I helped you. It was of a higher level and had a closer connection. In the pressure room. Would element be classroom? The middle-aged woman left the moon dancer in the hall and followed him over. Let the sprite in. Inside, the pressure will gradually increase over time. It will reach its peak in the 10th minute and maintained for a period of time. Whether it can succeed depends on whether the sprite can grasp the opportunity to break through before the 10 minutes are up. Su Hao and Reverie Butterfly looked at each other. To cheer it on. Gurgle. All right. Gurgle. Sure. I guess. Gurgle. Su Hao picked up Reverie Butterfly, exerted strength in his arm muscles, and threw it. Bayou. A Reverie Butterfly was thrown into the pressure room. It flapped its wings to stabilize itself and widened its innocent big eyes. The door closed. Su Hao stood in front of the only window and looked inside. He couldn't see anything abnormal. But from Reverie Butterfly's gradually serious little face, he could feel that the pressure was coming. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Time passed. Su Hao and the female teacher stood outside the pressure room and watched quietly. Before long, it was the 10th minute. The pressure was at its peak. The flapping of Reverie Butterfly's wings was very slow. Thick spiritual force surrounded it, making it emit circles of emerald green halos. But there were no signs of a breakthrough on its body. Through the contract connection, he repeatedly compared it with the interface data. Su Hao realized that the pressure wasn't enough. The little rascal was even gradually adapting to the environment of the pressure room. He thought about it and had to ask, then, "Teacher, can the pressure inside increase a little more?" Chapter 144, School starts officially. The female teacher was speechless. The planning of the pressure room, the increase in pressure, when it reached its peak, and so on had all been done through research, analysis, and experiments. In the end, they came up with the most suitable pressure growth curve for Sprites to break through to elite level. But the middle-aged woman stared at Reverie Butterfly inside for a while. She discovered that this Sprite was indeed able to handle the current pressure. It wasn't an act. It couldn't pretend either. She thought for a while and said, "I can increase the pressure for it further, but if the Sprite feels any discomfort, you have to let me know in time. Otherwise, excessive pressure may very well cause the Sprite to be injured. It'll be troublesome to recover after that." What she was looking at might not be accurate. But at such a close distance, relying on the contract, one could clearly sense the state of the Sprite. She warned him repeatedly, and then started to increase the pressure in the pressure room. The pressure inside continued to increase steadily. More and more spiritual force particles accumulated. Gradually, a wind started blowing in the pressure room. Spiritual force particles, visible to the naked eye, were blown around like fallen leaves in the wind. It floated up and down. Reverie Butterfly's little face was already tense. The emerald green patterns on its wings glowed brightly. Ripples spread out. Su Hao clenched his fists. Reverie Butterfly's figure was reflected in his eyes. He silently encouraged and supported it in his heart. It seemed like a long time, but also seemed to be very short. Reverie Butterfly's tiny body shook. Gurgle, gurgle. Even though the pressure room blocked out all sound, he still heard the little rascals shout on the inside. The invisible aura gradually increased. The spiritual force particles in the secret room started to pulsate violently, quickly gathering towards the center from all directions. It formed an emerald green cyclone. In the center was the Reverie Butterfly that was breaking through. The female teacher's mouth opened involuntarily. Was it breaking through to elite level? She had originally been thinking that when the signs of the Reverie Butterfly breaking through appeared, she would have to stop the pressure from increasing and maintain it at the most suitable level. But when she looked back, it had already reached the highest value of the B-class pressure room. 10 minutes later, the commotion inside the pressure room gradually calmed down. Reverie Butterfly flew out in high spirits. After circling twice, it landed on his head. Only an invisible pressure was surrounding his body. 3 days later. August 15 was the day when new students of Whale Island University could officially apply for admission. Su Hao arrived at the student administration office early. Before the other new students arrived, he replaced his temporary student card and got a better beep student card. And a Sprite commandeering wristband. It also had functions such as communication, information gathering, shopping, and so on. From this moment on, he could be considered a first-year student at Whale Island University. Su Hao took out his cell phone. The 4 Little Heavenly Kings of Uncity group chat had already exploded with that. It was all Lu Ren's fault. "Old Su, take a few more pictures for us to see." "Old Su, we've arrived at Whaleport Town." "Old Su, Thai Su, an accessory please, sob, sob." It was the start of the new students' enrollment, so there might not be enough fully automated school buses in the school. Su Hao called out to the water unicorn beast, grabbed it by both hands, and jumped onto the horse's back. He sat steadily. Horsemanship. He had deliberately practiced it over the past month. "Let's go, the target is at the school gate." Nay. The water unicorn beast ran around happily. Its speed was much faster than during the college entrance examination. Before long, Su Hao arrived at the entrance of the main gate. He saw many students and parents, and the noisy and lively atmosphere came right at him. This made Su Hao, who was used to the quiet environment of the campus, a little uncomfortable. The moment he came out, he saw Lu Ren, Li Songting, and Gu Linjiao. There were a few sprites following beside them. Only Father Lu was there, none of the other parents tagged along. But he wasn't there to accompany them. Instead, he had taken advantage of the opportunity that Lu Ren had enrolled in Whale Island University to get approval to do business in Whale Port Town. Father Lu wanted to expand his company's business here. When Uncle Lu saw him come out, he exchanged a few pleasantries and smiled. "I won't disturb you young people anymore. The future is your era." He turned and left to earn money. At this moment, at the school's wide main entrance, it wasn't like when Su Hao came the other day, where there were only two gate gods, Elephant General and Golden Armored Overlord. There were no tables or chess pieces in front of the flower bed either. The two of them stood at the school gate, one on the left and one on the right. Their expressions were solemn, and they exuded a slight aura, showing off the prestige of Whale Island University. Even the words Whale Island University carved on the huge stone tablet on the left glowed faintly. There was also an invisible force. Under their influence, the approaching students and parents also lowered their voices. Apart from the two gate gods, Su Hao also saw many seniors. Well, there were credits for volunteers. Unfortunately, he had to apply before the 15th, and he had only gotten his official student card this morning. None of An City's 4 little heavenly kings had parents accompanying them, but Su Hao scanned the area and noticed that there were still a lot of parents. Some families had 5 to 7 people, so they could even form teams. It made the school gate, which was as wide as a plaza, seem a little squeezy. After all, almost all the new students had come on the first day. Some students from special families and backgrounds were full of confidence as they walked into the campus with their luggage. However, some students from ordinary families didn't know much about Whale Island University. Their parents were going on and on, asking the older students about the school's situation. It made the seniors, who didn't have many volunteers to begin with, somewhat overwhelmed. When a parent saw Su Hao riding a horse out of school and greeting the new students, Lu Ren and the others, he immediately walked over and asked. Student, how's the food and accommodation conditions at your school? If you don't allow us parents to go in, we can at least send things in, right?" The parent pointed to the 2 small trucks that were stopped at the school gate. "I've booked 2 cars of daily necessities for my baby. Hey, student, can you bring my baby's things to the dormitory? This is my name card." It was a name card of a certain company's president. Then, Su Hao saw this parent's baby again. A female student, who was about 1.6 meters tall and probably more than 160 pounds, lowered her head when she saw him looking over and showed a shy smile. Cough, cough. Su Hao pushed the name card back. "Uncle, if you have any questions, please look for the seniors." "I'm not a senior student, I'm just an ordinary first-year student, I don't know anything, I don't know anything." He even took out the student card he had just gotten and shook the registration date on it. "Today." Then, he quickly turned around, heaved a sigh of relief and walked further away. The fat student's parents watched Su Hao's back as he left. He recalled the registration date on the student card and the name blocked by his thumb. He was stunned. He was indeed a new student, but why was he so familiar? After Su Hao walked away, he saw that there were other parents who were going to mistake him for a senior student. He hurriedly greeted Lu Ren and the others. "Let's go." Chapter 145, Opening Ceremony. Lu Ren and the others took out their admission notices and handed them to the gate god Elephant General for inspection. Both gate gods had mastered unique testing skills. With a glance, they determined that it was a real admission notice. Its long elephant nose twitched, meaning that it could go in now. At this point, the few fully automated school buses at the school gate had already disappeared. The new students who were dragging their luggage or carrying large and small bags on their sprites were following the road signs to the student administration office. Led by their seniors? That didn't exist. Unless it was a female junior whose looks were above 85 points, or a male junior whose handsomeness could make his female senior repeatedly turn her head. All the conditions were met in Suhao's team. Apart from Gu Linjiao's poor sense of direction and slight forgetfulness, which often required her to be taken care of by sprites, she definitely had beauty. The three boys, Lu Ren and Li Songting, were holding them back, but Suhao was the hard carry in the team in terms of his appearances. Often, because he was too handsome, others would neglect his talent. It was just that he was mistaken for an older student. The three new students were led by the older student, so no other seniors came forward. "Where's Butterfly God?" Lu Ren asked. "We haven't seen him in the group for a few days too." Reverie Butterfly was an expert in the water group. It had already been the Dragon King for several days in the Four Little Heavenly Kings group chat. Even the big mouth Lu was defeated. Lu Ren was really not used to it suddenly disappearing. "Reverie Butterfly," Suhao shook his head and laughed. A few days ago, the little rascal had just broken through to elite level. Its various attributes had increased exponentially. When it was playing with its telekinesis, it accidentally used too much force. With a click, several cracks appeared on the phone screen. The cell phone wasn't broken, but it didn't dare to touch it anymore. From entry level to elite level, it was a comprehensive improvement. Another spiritual force vortex appeared in the sprite's body. In the first few days after entering the elite level, its body was nourished by the spiritual force cyclone. Every day, his attributes improved significantly. It was a period of rapid growth in strength. However, the little rascal's control of spiritual force had also become too poor. 2 of the spiritual force crystal balls had been destroyed. Suhao had ordered a high-level one, but it hadn't been delivered yet. The little rascal was currently adapting in the training room in the villa. As expected of Butterfly God, Lu Ren looked at the lava tortoise and said, "When you have a 5th, no, a 10th of the Butterfly God's strength, it's good enough." The lava tortoise turned its head, sparks flying from its nose. Was he saying that he had any objections? Lu Ren, no. It was still a bit time-consuming to walk from the school gate to the student administration office. Suhao let Lu Ren and the others ride their sprites. Lu Ren's blue water frog had already evolved into a giant tide frog. Its size was similar to the lava tortoise, and its speed was even faster. Gu Linjiao's spirit spring sprite summoned a wave of water, and together with her other sprite, water-treading snail, they used the water to carry her along the way. Li Songting. His ascetic dog wasn't big enough. But he also had another sprite that had just entered the sect boxing kangaroo, evolved from baby kangaroo. It was said that it was an imported sprite from the Australian region. It was considered pretty rare in Dragon Nation. Boxing kangaroos were about the size of ordinary kangaroos. It wouldn't be a big problem for one person to ride on it. But are you sure you want to run by yourself? Li Songting grinned and showed his teeth. Of course. Suhao, all right. Suhao rode the water unicorn beast and made it jog at a constant speed all the way to the student administration office. The 2 sprites controlling the water current wrapping around Gu Linjiao were about to run out of spiritual force. Lu Ren, who slid down from the giant tide frog, was completely pale. On the other hand, apart from being covered in sweat, Li Songting was also panting slightly. Impressive. Thanks to their quick speed, there weren't many students queuing up to go through the procedures. Before long, Lu Ren and the others got their student cards and sprite commandeering wristbands. They also chose their dormitory. Old Su, the 2 villas around you have actually been chosen. I'm so angry. Lu Ren really wanted to know who exactly was snatching his spot. But there was no other way. Lakeview Park was indeed the neighborhood with the best environment. At the location of Suhao's villa, when he got up in the morning and pulled open the curtains, he could see the sparkling surface of the lake. Those with good taste had long picked it out. Only Li Songting didn't choose Lakeview Park, but chose a neighborhood near a mountain. In his words, running a few rounds of mountain roads in the morning was the most suitable. Then, Su Hao introduced some school facilities to them. It was impossible to bring them on a tour and introduce them. It was too far away, a waste of time. Su Hao took out a map and pointed at some training grounds and explained. As Lu Ren and the others listened, they also used the Sprite commandeering wristband to search for items that credits could exchange for. D*MN, the heart of secondary attributes costs 300 credits. The complete heart of attributes costs 1,500 credits, and it's even limited. The heart of lava, based on the quality, costs 100 to 250 credits, but it can only be exchanged with credits, not Dragon Nation dollars. Can't I spend 5 times the price? If it could be bought with money, Lu Ren wouldn't have called it expensive. No matter how much he wailed, it couldn't change the fact that he had become a poor man. Su Hao was poor too. His credits were less than 20. He could accept missions now, but as the teacher from the student office said, there weren't many missions that a first-year student could choose from. For example, the mission to hunt down some extremely evil wanted criminals, he couldn't accept it now. There were prerequisites. The best opportunity to earn credits is indeed in the challenge segment. I need to save on credits in the next few days. Fortunately, apart from buying tickets to the training field, Su Hao didn't need credits anywhere else. Ordinary nutritional supplements such as jade powder were sold at the Green Shade supermarket in Whaleport Town outside the school. Orders could also be made directly, and mission birds send them right to the dormitory door. The 15th to 25th of August was the time for the new students to go through the admission procedures. On the 26th, the opening ceremony was held at the school hall. In Su Hao's batch, a total of 1,100 new students sat in the auditorium, appearing a little sparse. As there were no so-called classes and most people didn't know each other, they sat wherever they wanted. The school leaders didn't care. The school didn't pay much attention to the rules on the surface. They cared more about the students' abilities and morals. Su Hao looked ahead. The person speaking on the stage was a managing vice president, not a heavenly king. Apart from the occasional classes, the 8 heavenly king level professors basically didn't control anything else. The principal, the crown sprite trainer, was even more elusive. It was normal to not see him in school for a year or two. On the stage, after the vice president introduced the history and honor of the school, he paused. I'll make this short, mainly 3 things. Firstly, universities are the cradle for nurturing you. I hope that all of you can become accomplished and responsible sprite trainers, and the school can also provide you with a lot of resources. But, it's not free. Apart from the 100 credits given by the enrollment, when you want credits on other occasions, it will depend on your grades. Your contributions. Only with effort can you gain. Secondly, apart from a few compulsory classes that must be attended, you can choose to attend any other course. However, Sprite universities have never been a comfortable place. After coming here, you are no longer favored by the heavens, but ordinary students. If you fail the final assessment at the end of the semester, your credits will be deducted. If you fail a total of 3 assessments, you can pack your things and leave. The university doesn't provide for useless people. The third point is also what many of you are paying attention to. The choice of instructors. Every instructor has limited time and energy. If you want to receive an invitation from an instructor, then you have to show your excellence. Tomorrow, there's a challenge segment in the simulation battlefield. You can challenge the new students of the same batch, you can challenge many students with your own strength, or, you can challenge your seniors. Everything is up to you. I'm done. Next, the instructors will do a self-introduction before the meeting ends. The instructors' introductions were all in 1 or 2 sentences. In less than an hour, the school opening ceremony had ended.